So we just talk about the demand and supply, right? So remember when we talk about demand supply, we use the term ceteris paribus, which means we want to keep other factors constant to see the effect of only change price. Now we want to see what's other factors there, right? So for supply, or for demand, the first factor can be the income. So if your income changes, our demand for some certain goods may change, right? So if you get richer, probably you want to buy some more goods or buy less. Next, change in taste or preference. So suppose these days people are aware of the importance of environment protection, animal protection. So we are changing our taste for the animal products. So we are increase our demand for vegetables and decrease our demand for meat, right? Also, the change in the number of demographic or composition of consumers. Suppose you are in a society where there are a lot of kids, so we'll have a high demand for kindergarten and children child care services, right? So suppose we transit into an aging society where the old people accounts for a large proportion of the total population, and people are less willing to give birth to kids. So now we will our demand for uh, child care services or kindergarten will decrease, and our demand for nursing homes will increase, right? And change in the expectations of the future. The pandemic is a very good example. So our expectations for the future changes, your demand for clean products will increase, right? And also the changes in the price of related goods. We will talk about that later. So like peanut butters and jelly, they are related because uh, people will treat them as substitute, right? You will either eat peanut butter or either use the jelly. So what will happen if the income changes? So if my income change, probably I will increase my consumption of some certain goods. If that's the case, we call that goods to be the normal good, right? So you can pause the video and think for 2 minutes about can come up with some examples of this normal good. Right, so like organic food, electronics, travel, these are all normal good. When people's income increase, people's demand for this good will increase. The other way, if our income increase, actually we will decrease our demand for some other goods. That good will be called as inferior goods. Also, please come up with some examples of this inferior good, like instant noodles, public transportation, second-hand clothes, right? So if our income increased, we will demand less public transportation, right? And we will demand less second-hand clothes. So the related goods, there are two kinds of related goods. They can be substitute or complementary, right? So if the price of the related goods changes, our demand for that good will also change. For substitute, a substitute is a good or service we use in place of another good or service, like peanut butter and jelly, right? So if the price of the substitute increased, we will shift our demand upward, while the price of that substitute decrease will shift our demand downward, like tea and coffee, Coke and Pepsi, Uber and bus, right? So see, if the price for Coke increased, people will switch from Coke to Pepsi, so that will increase higher demand for Pepsi, right? Similarly, if the price of Coke decreases, people will go from Pepsi to buy more Coke, so the demand for Pepsi will decrease. Right? That's the substitute. We also have that complement goods. So complement is a good or service we use together with another good or service, right? So an increase in the price of complement will shift our demand downward, while a decrease will shift our demand upward. Some examples can be cars and fuel, pasta and pasta sauce, phones and phone cases, right? So if the price of the pasta increased as a complement, people will demand less pasta sauce because they are used together. Similarly, if the price for pasta decreased, people will eat more pasta and that will create higher demand for pasta sauce, right? That's the complement good. So we can also consider changes in expectations about the future. Here is an example for the very early stages of the pandemic. So after the announcement of the COVID, people went into the groceries to buy a lot of cleaning products and paper towels that will create a shortage when we see all the empty shelves in the groceries for these products, right? So in the initial equilibrium, we have this equilibrium price and quantity, right? So after the announcement of the COVID, people changed their beliefs or expectations about the future because people will think, oh, that will be a very long period when we need to clean our hands very frequently, right? So that will change our demand, shift our demand to the right because we'll demand more these cleaning products. So when we have a higher demand, if the grocery stores are not flexible enough to adjust their price immediately, we will see a shortage, right? Because here they are only providing that quantity, but consumers are demanding more, so there will be a shortage. So that's what we see in the grocery stores or the empty shelves for these cleaning products, right? And later, the stores they will increase the price, so until we get into this new equilibrium. So in the new equilibrium, we'll have a higher quantity and higher price. So that's for the demand. What will factors will shift our supply? Uh, we can see the changes in input prices will change our supply because remember our supply curve basically is just the marginal cost of the producers, right? So if the input price changes, our marginal cost will also change, so we will shift our supply curve. Also, the changes in the number of producers. So suppose we have more producers in the market to produce this good uh, for the same price, there will be higher supply. Right? And changes in technology. So suppose we have some technology improvement to decrease the cost. So that will also increase our supply, right? Because that's for the same price, we have a lower cost, lower marginal cost to produce more. Um, Also changes in taxes, regulations, and subsidies. So this all will change the cost of production. So that will shift our supply curve, right? Now can consider this lumber market example during the pandemic. Again, initially we have this equilibrium by crossing the demand and supply, right? So at the beginning of the pandemic, lumber mills they cut their staff in half to meet social distancing guidelines. So think about it, whether it's a demand change or supply change. That should be a supply change, right? Because uh, that happens in the producers, not the consumers. So what's the effect? We'll have less people working, less producers, so we'll decrease our supply. So we shift our supply to the left, right? In the end, we will have a higher price and lower quantity than before. So now consider the household side. Expecting to spend more time at home, households in quarantine began labor-intensive home improvement projects. So in that case, that's a demand or supply change. That's demand, right? So that's an increase in demand. So we shift our demand to the right. Initially, the change in supply side shift the supply to the left. Now increase in demand will shift our demand to the right. So in the end, we'll have this new equilibrium with higher price than before. But the effect on quantity is ambiguous because the change in supply will decrease our quantity, and the change in supply decrease our quantity, and change in demand increase our quantity. So the net effect can be either positive, negative, or even zero. So the effect on quantity is ambiguous, but the effect on price is clear because change in supply and change in demand, they both increase the price, right? So the total effect must be increasing the price.